All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. This episode is part of a series in which I will be interviewing experts in the field of property, whether purchasing a family home or an investment. The series is designed to assist you in making better and smarter property decisions. When building a house or undertaking any type of property development, a town planner is a crucial part of that process. A lot of people don't know what a town planner exactly does, and those that do don't always understand some of the other things that a town planner can do. So today I've invited Vassili Stammes, the director of VMS Town Planning, and also of a cool little web-based app called PropCheck, which we'll get into a bit later as well, to talk about this topic. Vassili, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Michael. I really appreciate you inviting me to be part of this podcast.
Yeah, well, it's, when I think town planning, I think of you. And it's, to those that haven't heard of town planning, can you sort of start off maybe by just explaining what a town planner actually is?
Yeah, no problems at all. I guess town planning, it covers a range of things at different levels of government. So really broadly, we can just look at what they call strategic town planners, and they normally work for councils or state governments, and they look at like the really higher order stuff, big picture things that the everyday person may or may not be aware of, and they're looking at more overall city plans, regional plans, state plans, all that really big overarching stuff, where the majority of, I guess, town planners work in, and what more people might be, might understand what a town planner is in development assessment. So that is someone that's working, on particular sites, individual sites, or combination of a couple parcels, and you would go to a town planner to work out, hey, what can I do with this property? Are there any problems or things I need to be aware of, such as, say, flooding, easements? Is the building character or heritage protected? Where are the services, sewer, water, stormwater, all those physical things, and those all those aspects of development that you need to understand before you proceed with a development that you might want to do. And there's typically two sides of that story. So you've got a private town planner like myself, who would normally help home buyers, builders, developers, depending on the scale of development. And then you've got the town planners within council or state government that assess a proposal. So, for example, really simply, if you've got a block of land, I can help you understand the zoning and all the rest of it. You may want to do, say, a 2-lot subdivision. So initially, I would get involved to let you know whether you could do it or not. Then if we say, okay, there's opportunity to do this type of development, these are the things we need to consider along the way. This is the process. And then we'd put a development application together and then submit that to council for approval. So then from there, I'd be negotiating and talking with the council town planners to come to an outcome, and more often than not, to get it approved. And then from there, there's a few other things that happen post approval to then carry out that development. So I know it's always the age-old question, and even in our industry, it's really hard to just put it in a couple of words. What is a town planner? Because we do so much, but I guess my best way of describing it is, we project manage and advise on developments on properties.
Yeah, because I see a big part, for me personally even, just from experience, a big part in engaging a town planner is that initial process, like when you're looking at something that even you're thinking of buying, and you think, okay, well, could I build a 2-story house on it? Could I subdivide it one day? Is it going to be easy to build on it, especially if there's no house there at the moment? because there's so many things to it. Like there's, is there enough sewage, enough water? Is it sloping? Is it flood affected? All these different things. And yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people can call like the council, and the council can normally help with a few of these things. But I mean, what is the difference between someone just talking to the council themselves, or engaging someone like you?
Yeah, definitely. There's obviously lots of things to consider. Pre-purchase, if you've got an idea of in the future developing the property, or even if you just want to understand, hey, does my property flood? Are there easements on the property? How does that affect me? Where is the sewer? I might just want to do an extension to the house, or put a pool in, and understanding where things are on the property will actually dictate if you can or can't do those sort of things. So just say it's really simply putting a pool in the backyard. If there's a sewer line running across that part of the property you wanted to put the pool, that's sort of a red flag. That's, depending on how it is and everything, but there's more likely than not, you wouldn't be able to put a pool in that location. I guess going to council is probably a good step, but typically when you call up council or go to the front desk, they can only really give really broad general advice, and especially about a development, because they don't have all the information of what you want to do, and part of the assessment to give you enough information back. So they give really broad advice, and where a private town planner like myself would be more beneficial is you can come to us. We can talk through what you want to do on the property. We can provide all that information about, easements, character, flooding, what the zone is, how high you can build, all those types of things, and then help you even through the design process, and then give that bit more reassurance that, hey, this thing could get approved by council. Let's put all the correct information together and package it up and lodge it to council. And that's typically when council will want to look at it. And that's why some people do get frustrated going to the front door at council and come out of it saying, well, that wasn't really helpful because they didn't give me enough information. But they typically will only give that general information up front because they don't have all the information themselves of what you do want to do. So private town planners, is for me, obviously always the first step. Understanding even pre-purchase is really important, and not a lot of people always do that. Typically it's like, let's secure the property, and then a couple of years later, hey, we're thinking of doing this. And that can be risky because without knowing about the property, you may or may not be able to do what you want to do on it, and you've already then committed to it. So it can help purchasing decisions. And I will just jump in there and just say I've also developed this, I guess you could call it an app. It's a web-based app. It's called PropCheck. So it's a fully automated town planning and property development platform, which, you can search the address, and it actually spits out all this information we're talking about, from zoning, flooding, heritage, character, where all the services are, bushfire, and so much more, in a nice, easy to read report. Has all the information there, and it downloads within 5 to 10 minutes. So it's very quick, very efficient, and it shows you all that initial information up front that if you were looking to develop down the track, or had an idea, or just wanted to understand your property a bit better, it's a quick, easy tool to be able to do that before you purchase. And it can help your purchasing decision. You might have plans to do something with the property, and before you even buy it, you could use PropCheck as a tool to say, okay, well, I can't actually do this on this property. Let's go find a property I can do this on. Or, hey, that's great. I know what I can do on this property. I know the constraints, or if there aren't any constraints, it's great. And it just helps. I've found that it's helped people be more informed, and help them be more confident in buying as well in the purchasing decision. So sorry to go off topic a little bit, but that's sort of another avenue and another product that I've actually I offer. It's separate to VMS town planning, but we work in in parallel with each other. And I found it a really good tool, and some of my clients have found it a really good tool, helping to find sites suitable for what they want to do.
No, it makes so much sense, because the thing is, I also see the value if you're, for example, looking at two different blocks, to where if
just sort of about the same price. You sort of like each one just as much as the other, especially if they're in different locations. A report like that, or talking to someone like you, makes a humongous difference, because at least you might be able to find out something about one block that the other one doesn't have, for example, or like what you said, if somebody has plans, if they're buying a block to build a particular house, which is of a particular color, made up of some, with a particular facade and whatever, that may be contradictory to what they're allowed to actually do as
Yeah,
well. So,
that's correct. Like, really simply, you could be looking at two properties. One could be in a low density residential zone, which is, for normal sort of houses, and one could be in a character residential zone. And your plan might be to knock down the house and rebuild, or even just to renovate the house. They could be side by side in the street or across the road, but that zoning would dictate the type and style of house, or whether you can even knock down that house to rebuild. So in a character zone, there's traditional character elements that need to be met, and more often than not, they would need to go to council for approval. So even renovations on character homes, or even if you wanted to try and knock it down and rebuild, one, you may not be able to knock it down. Two, if you were able to, the new house would have to still fit those character elements. We couldn't go and build, for example, a big 2-story brick house with columns and all the rest of it. And where on that other block you would be able to do that, because there's none of that restrictions to types of materials, roof forms, roof shapes, all those sort of character elements. So they could be side by side, they could be across the street, but it's very important to understand that the zoning or other overlays, like a character overlay, might dictate what you can and can't do there. So um, unfortunately, I hear it all the time. It's, oh, hey, they did this next door, why can't I do it? And with town planning and development, it is site by site based. Sure enough, as an overall, okay, if they did that next door, there may be opportunity to do the same thing. But even if the zoning was the same and you were able to do the same as next door, there might be other factors, sewer running down the back somewhere, easements affecting your area you could build on the property. Same with flooding aspects, or other, trees that may not be able to be cut down, and all of a sudden that affects what you can and can't do on the property. So it's very important for each property, site by site basis, to talk to a town planner and work out what you can and can't do. And if you have an idea of what you want to do, I would be recommending engaging a town planner before you purchase to work out if that's even feasible or possible. And if not, then at least you're aware you haven't outlaid and purchased that property, and you can go find one that suits that criteria of what you want to do.
These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.
Yeah, because buying a block, apart from the emotional, energy and the time involved, it could cost you a lot of money if you bought a block and then basically just had to sell it straight away, because you've got stamp duty, lawyer fees. There's, just that in itself. If you bought something and sold it, it's it's not a cheap exercise. I was going to ask you, what are some other big mistakes that you've seen?
Yeah, typically, yes. Just going off the back of that one, is people having an idea of what they want to do on a particular property, and doing everything but engage a town planner and get that initial advice, from drawing up plans, purchasing the property. And probably the worst ones is actually going ahead and, just say it's an extension or something, doing it, I guess, without approval. That could be very costly. So one, it might not even be zoned correctly. Two, you've already outlaid the money and purchased the property. And three, actually carrying out what you wanted to do, council can then step in and say, hang on a minute, you don't have approval for that. One, go and get approval for it and submit an application, which is always harder, especially if there's some things they don't like that you've already done. They could turn around and say to you, well, no, we don't want that in this zone or on this property. You'll have to remove that. So then you've got to demolish or partially demolish part of a building. So it can be a very costly exercise to go down that track and not understand what you can and can't do with the property. So, it might be an hour of your time talking to a town planner, but it could save you a whole lot of dollars at the back end and a whole lot of headaches. So obviously, without naming names and everything like that, I have experienced one where someone's come to me after the fact, wanted to put their business on this property, have undertaken, I guess, illegal extensions. And my advice, if they came to me beforehand, would have been to not purchase the property. One, it's not zoned correctly, and it's something that council would highly unlikely, not approve, highly likely not approve. And two, extending the building without the correct permits is, one, it's illegal, can get fined. I'm not sure if they did. I would imagine they did if when council got involved. And then it just creates a really big mess that's, just going to be costly to get out of. And you obviously have to end up, council can make you close down the business, I guess, or cease operations from that premises. So it's just a costly exercise that it's not worth cutting corners. And it's like in any industry, I guess if you're cutting corners or doing things cheaply to cut corners, it more often than not does catch up to you. So it's always beneficial to get that advice up front, and that advice at a small fee and a small part of your day, a time out of your day, could save you a whole lot of money and time and headaches, down the track.
Yeah, I agree, because it's one of those things. It's like anything, planning for something and doing the due diligence and the preparation is a lot better than just going with the flow and just hoping it's going to work out. Because I can only imagine the stress of building something and being told by council, you shouldn't have done that, or knocking down a building and finding out you shouldn't have done that either, or again, even just buying a block and then finding out you can't use it for what you wanted to use it for.
Yeah, it's we're not talking about small amounts of money. It's
Yep.
properties, it's large amounts of money people are outlaying, and all the rest of it on top that goes with development. It could affect lots of people and businesses quite significantly that, they might need to shut down or whatever else. It's just really not worth doing that without getting the correct advice up front.
And I've talked to council before about blocks before in the past, and you are right. Like you get there, you turn up, you talk to them, they want to help you. Don't get me wrong, but
Yep.
it's very limited with what they can tell. Like they can only show you information. If you say, okay, I want to do this, they'll be like, oh look, I can't answer that question. You have to submit this to this person, and that person sends you back like a really general, vague answer.
Yep.
And then or you get told certain terms and you're like, what does that mean? And then they'll sort of explain it, but they won't explain the other term. And, so I guess having someone like you in that, if having someone like you in the corner of the person buying a house, it does help. And you mentioned negotiating as well with the council. So is that just essentially talking to the town planner at the council to just, to translate what they're trying to say or what they're trying to do or achieve?
Yep, it can be a combination of things. So, like, very simply, working out what you can and can't do. But once we put that documentation together and submit it to council, there may be things, say, where, because it's not necessarily black and white. Most town planning schemes are performance-based solutions. So they want to see, it's not just yes or no. They want to see good design outcomes, good planning outcomes. And I guess that's probably the key role of a town planner, is to kind of facilitate good outcomes. Council shouldn't be, I guess, painted as the enemy, so to speak. We need good town planners, good private town planners, and good council town planners would work really well together in achieving an outcome that, one, is commercially viable for the client, but also and achieving something, the highest and best use and the best, I guess, yield for the client, but also something council is and the community can be proud of and happy and want to see in the city. So it's all about, when I say negotiating, it's all about, I guess, more so collaborating, working together with council and achieving the best possible outcome for the community, but also, feasible for the client to actually go and then carry out that development, build that building or subdivide that block. Performance-based outcomes, just really simply, let's just say a 2-lot subdivision, and it's 800 square meters, but the frontage width is only 19 meters. Typically, you need 10-meter frontage or width to comfortably fit a house on that block, so 2 400s. I guess a negotiation or a discussion with council would be, hey, the block's big enough, but the frontage isn't quite big enough. We're short by half a meter on each block. So we need 20, we've got 19, so 9.5 each. This is examples of houses that can fit on a 9.5 meter frontage, and this is the type of house and style that we can go for. This is still how it's achieving everything else. The car parking can work, the setbacks are achievable, all the services can be connected, all those other things. And the only non-compliant, so to speak, would be the width of the property, where we can demonstrate that all those other bits and pieces can be achieved and it's still a really good outcome. That's where that negotiation comes into to get approved a reduced frontage width of a block. So that's where we can sort of help push the boundaries, and it's not always just pushing the boundaries to get as much as you can, because that's not always going to work, but it's going to be pushing the boundaries to get that little bit more, but still something where it's still a good outcome and still something council are happy with, but also achieves you a better outcome than what you first might have thought you could get. So that's one example there. Does that make sense? I know it's a bit...
Yeah, it definitely does. It's about having like a balance, really, between what
Correct.
the council's trying to do, and they're trying to make sure people don't stuff things up and make the city look like a circus, and trying to also give the landowner the respect and the rights they deserve to be able to develop their block and to build what they want to build.
That's right, yeah, because if it was all on council, they'd make it black and white, and then everything will look the same.
Yeah.
They put it back on the owners or the developers or the builders to say, okay, show us what you're proposing, show us how it fits the planning scheme. It doesn't have to fit, tick and flick, but show us overall how this is, even though it's not meeting the tick and flick sort of requirements, show us a performance-based solution, a site-specific solution that looks amazing and that we're going to be happy with, and the community are going to say, well, that's a really good outcome for the area. So that's sort of what it's all about.
Yep, no, that makes a lot of sense, Vassili. And also, can I ask if anybody wants to get in contact with you or they want to learn more about PropCheck, what's the best way for them to do that?
To get in contact with me for any sort of town planning development advice, or if you want to get help with your property, the best way to reach out is probably my website, vmstownplanning.com.au. And likewise with PropCheck, propcheck.com.au. And PropCheck, you can jump on there. You can sign up for free. It's no problems at all. And you can search for your address, and it's, you pay per report, or there's different subscription options as well to find out more about your property.
Yeah, fantastic. And also, what I'll do in the description of this episode, I'm going to put a link as well to the to those two sites as well. So if anybody wants to find it, it's just easier to click on the link as well.
Yep, no, that sounds great.
Yeah, and lastly, I like to finish off with a dad joke. So we've got dad joke of the week, we'll call it. So I hope you're ready.
I did some. I'm a dad myself.
Sweet. So you've got one ready.
I've got one ready, and I was probably spitting dad jokes out before I was a dad. So
nice. I've heard the same. But no, it's a really good joke. But the problem is, it was actually about construction. But I still need to work on it.
Oh, have you got a joke?
That was the joke. It's a joke about construction, but I still need to work on it. All right, now time for yours. Just figured I even said anything.
I was pretty good. Okay.
That's okay.
Mine's not as subtle as that. Did you hear about the cheesecake factory that exploded in France?
No.
Debris is everywhere.
I love it. That's awesome.
It's terrible, but it's great.
That is awesome. Oh, they're so good. They're so good. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, how old's your little one?
He's almost one. Yeah.
Almost one. Okay, so give him a year or two, and he'll understand the dad jokes better and appreciate them. Hopefully.
Oh, I'm sure he'll be face palming himself when
Oh,
he
yeah.
hears them. Come on,
Guaranteed.
Dad.
I mean, that's the
What
whole
is that?
point. That's
Exactly.
literally the whole point.
Exactly. Should try and embarrass him, right?
Oh, man. Vasili, thank you so much for your time, mate. I appreciate it so much. Again, I hope everyone who listens to this episode gets some sort of inspiration or direction next time they're looking at building or developing property. So again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me on, and appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.